Hello everybody, I'm finally back to do another blog about MBTI. Been away for a little while, mainly kind of basically because I haven't thought of anything in particular that has struck me as important, or, well, things have struck me as important as well, of course, but I've been very busy, and this is the first time I've had the chance to really think about something that I think is really interesting to do with MBTI, so I'm going to share it with you. So basically what this little blog is about is that quite a lot of people recently have been doing a quiz online called Cognitive Quiz. Right now, what's really interesting about it is that people are going to this test, and they're doing the test, and they're getting what they think of as weird stacks out of the test. So what's happening is they're doing the test and they're getting really unusual results. So I'm just going to explain to you what my own results were, because I feel like if I explain to you what I got, then I can start to explain to you that if you get something similar or also a strange result, then you'll know why you got an odd result. So as an ENFJ, I should have extroverted feeling, introverted intuition, extroverted sensing and introverted thinking in that order. So when I did this test, I got extroverted feeling first. I got 95% for extroverted feeling. Then I got introverted intuition, which is correct, it's the right order. I think I got 85% for that. Then after that I got introverted feeling at, I think about 70%, 75%. And then my fourth function, which was, I got NE, extroverted intuition, as my last so-called function in this stacking, right? So, and I think I got about 65% for that particular function. So basically what people are kind of reading into that is that they're really unusual, and that they have a really unusual stack because they happen to be an interesting new type, or they kind of have ways of using these functions which other people don't. So But what's really interesting, I think, about it is that it just makes sense. Okay, it's not because, for example, you know, the suggested types for me are ENFJ first, INFJ second. Okay, those are the two same function stacks, but they're in a slightly different order, as you should know. And then INFP is my third option, because my FI was high, and so was my introverted feeling, and so was my extroverted intuition. That would make me into either an ENFJ, INFJ, or INFP. Okay, but that just makes sense. So why does it make sense? This is a kind of a strange thing to suggest that it makes sense, but really, the thing to kind of remember about it is that when you first took an MBTI test and you were looking at who you were and trying to figure out how you interacted with the world, and you kind of took a personality test, and it was an MBTI one. When you first took this test, the questions that were posed to you were not questions to do with whether or not you're an introverted feeler or an extroverted feeler, or whether or not you're an introverted sensor or an extroverted sensor, or whether or not you're an introverted intuition user or an extroverted intuition user, or anything else like that. What it's asking you is what your preference is, and what your what you value in the world. So it's saying, are you more into objective facts, or are you more into morality connected with people? And of course everybody kind of swims around in the area of doing both, and doing some of one and a little bit of the other, because everybody has all the functions. But the way that I'm going to illustrate the fact that it's sensible and normal for you to get, if you're an NF, you're always going to intuitively feel. So you're going to value intuition and feelings over senses and thinking. So I'm going to illustrate that by showing you a kind of volumetric prop. Okay, so the thing that I'm going to show you is that basically, say if I, as an ENFJ, okay, so the most important thing to me is my feelings, right? So the way that I feel about other people, the way that people feel in the world, the way that they feel about subjects, about ideas, anything, this is actually what matters to me most. So this is a nice big jar full of feelings, okay? That's how much I value feelings, okay? Quite a lot, right? Well, in fact, that's what I value most. So then I also value intuition. So I have a slightly smaller jar for my intuition, not much smaller, but it's smaller nonetheless. So these are the things that I value most, my feelings and my intuition. Now this is true of any NF type. So they could be ENFJ or INFP, which is of course the opposite stack with the, they have the opposite functions in the same order as an ENFJ. But basically INFPs value feelings this much. So when they take an MBTI test, they answer yes to the questions which ask about feelings. So this jar gets full about how they feel. Okay, not sorted amongst FI and FE, not sorted amongst extroverted and introverted feeling, but sorted amongst the fact that they feel more about the world. And the same thing with intuition, right? It's, they're not filling this up with questions to do with extroverted intuition or introverted intuition. They're filling this up with intuition. Okay. Now, of course, as an ENFJ, my third function is extroverted sensing. So then I've got a smaller amount that I care about senses. Okay, and then I have a smaller amount that I care about objective facts and thoughts. Right. So even though I do think, of course, and I use this to actually inform this. So I use my thinking, to do with facts in order to explain how I feel about the world and explain how it's important to include morality in data. Okay, it doesn't matter whether or not data suggests that, for example, something crazy. I'm always going to argue that feeling and morality is more important than this. So that's basically what you're doing when you take the MBTI test. You're sorting out the fact that you feel more about the world than you think about it or sense about it. And if you're a, these are your senses, you just don't use them as much. You use your intuition as a way of kind of perceiving the world. So that's basically the way to explain it. So when you're taking the MBTI test and you're a feeler, and this is your feelings jar, it doesn't mean to say, so when you take your cognitive quiz, it doesn't mean to say, if you get FI really high up on your stack, that somehow you're an FE-FI user. Well, you are, of course, but the thing that's important to remember is that, say if 75% of this, as an ENFJ, is extroverted feeling, then that necessarily means that this bit up here, right, 25% of this is introverted feeling. So when I go away and talk to people about how they feel about things, using my extroverted feeling, I go back home or wherever and I have a think about what I feel about what they said with my introverted feeling. But you see, that amount of introverted feeling is still probably more volumetrically than how I think. So of course my FI comes out quite high because I value feelings of both sorts. And when I go away and I've listened, I've listened with my introverted intuition over here, and most of that is introverted intuition, right? Then introverted intuition really loves ideas, and it listens to ideas, and it kind of, it crunches them up and it funnels them down and gets an answer, and it expresses them through extroverted functions. But this other 25%, say, of my intuition is extroverted intuition, and even then my extroverted intuition, if I'm using only, if I'm using 25% of that, it's probably still volumetrically more than how I think about the world, because I just don't value my thinking function as highly as I do my intuition. So that's really how to explain why you get these strange stacks. And of course the cognitive quiz is useful for trying to figure out, say if you're kind of like on the cusp of a few functions, you'll want to figure out, well, am I an ENFJ or am I an INFP or am I an INFJ or am I... Well, you're a mixture of all of the different things, and there is going to be one that you prefer over the other, but not necessarily in a huge way. But the most kind of important thing is, it's simple, it's asking you whether or not you're an extrovert or an introvert. Well, usually it's reasonably easy to tell. You know, ultimately, if you need a lot of time to recharge and you can't stand, you know, you find yourself being a bit socially anxious and you find it hard to always have contact with people, then that probably means you're an introvert. Whereas if you kind of spend a little bit of time alone as an extrovert and you think, I really, you know, this is driving me nuts, I need to speak to someone, then it probably means that overall you're an extrovert. And of course, sometimes you're an introvert. Sometimes as an extrovert you're an introvert, sometimes as an introvert you're an extrovert. Sometimes you want to go out, and if you're an INFP, then you're mostly using this as your introverted feeling, or any other introvert, you're mostly using this as your introverted function, but your next function is mainly filled with an extroverted function. So the thing that you value below that is an extroverted function. So you're wanting to talk about, if you're an INFP, you're feeling about how you feel mostly. Then you're talking about how your ideas connected with your feelings with your extroverted function, which is your second function. Same with INFJs, you know. They have introverted intuition first. This would be your introverted intuition bottle with a little bit of extroverted intuition, because you care about intuition, you care about ideas, and you talk about them, right? And then your second function is extroverted feeling as an INFJ. So this would mostly be filled with extroverted feeling. So you're not just one thing. So I think that's pretty much it, really. I think I did a bit of a deconstruction of the quiz as well, which I think is quite interesting. So, for example, if we deconstruct the cognitive quiz questions, which is written some of them down. So we've got things like a bundle of possibilities to be explored and unravelled, right? That's just a question about extroverted intuition. But of course, as an introverted intuition user, I can see why that would be true and why it would be valuable. It's just that extroverted intuition users are more likely to vocalize about this whole bundle of possibilities to be explored and unraveled, whereas introverted intuition users are kind of crunching it up inside to find the answer and then explore it by talking about the thing that they think is right, rather than all of the possibilities that could be there. And then we have another question like a struggle between right and wrong. That's really an introverted feeling question. But of course, extroverted feelers are going to answer yes to that. You know, they're going to answer positively to that question, because as a feeler, you care about what's right and wrong. It's just that you talk about it more. You externalise that into the world, and you talk about that. And then we have another one: a place full of people that deserve help and compassion. That's an extroverted feeling question. And of course, as an ENFJ, that immediately answer yes to that. But FI users would also probably see that as an important thing. It's just that they would crunch it up internally instead of externally. And then, of course, like I think there was another question: the ability to intuitively know and understand something without consciously putting it into words. That's an introverted intuition question. Now, of course, the interesting thing about introverted intuition, quickly, before I need to finish this video, is that it's very quiet on the inside. You can't really hear it always working. And it comes up with really interesting answers and things when you least expect it. But still, with that question, you're not necessarily going to know that you're crunching up all the possibilities on the inside of your brain. Just like I winged this video. I've written stuff down, but I actually just said it, right? So, and of course that sounds like extroverted intuition, but it's because I've already got it arranged in my head, but I just can't tell it's there, because it's just sitting inside my brain. So, anyways, that's my video to do with the cognitive quiz. I hope it's useful to some people, and I hope it makes sense to you. And I'll probably do some other videos soon about other different things that I've been having to think about. And I hope it was useful. Leave your comments and tell me whether or not you think I'm right or wrong. Right or wrong, in fact. Alright, see you soon. Bye.